challenges that we are facing under the Trump administration. Esta mañana convoqué a líderes de la comunidad venezolana del sur de Florida para discutir los desafíos que enfrentamos bajo la administración Trump. Many of the Venezuelans in my district and across South Florida fled the brutality and despotism of the Maduro regime, and many have family members who are still there. In our discussions this morning, there is grave concern in the Venezuelan community across our community and across the country because Donald Trump has made a deal with the devil. He cut a deal with Maduro to deport hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans back to a country where they know they will face oppression, danger, persecution, arrest, and I'm talking about people who have never committed crimes. And that is in exchange so that Maduro can sell oil and continue to remain in power. That is a revolting deal with the devil. And Donald Trump can pretend off to the side with his distractions that he has the best interests of Venezuelans in restoring democracy at heart. But the stories I hear from across our community, including today at our roundtable, underscore that the opposite is true. Maduro has victimized the Venezuelan people. There's no mistake about that. Maduro has engaged in extrajudicial killings, torture and detention, and left millions of Venezuelans stateless as refugees. He's robbed the country blind to enrich his inner circle and declined to accept the results of elections, free and fair elections that he lost. This is all to say the tactics Donald Trump is engaging in at home and abroad are nothing new to many in my community, and they know brutality and authoritarianism when they see it. Donald Trump está involucrado en los mismos crímenes que Maduro: desapariciones, asesinatos extrajudiciales y corrupción. Y la comunidad venezolana reconoce este peligro. Trump's presidency has been an unending nightmare for Venezuelan Americans here and around the country. He has ripped away temporary protected status from law-abiding Venezuelans and thrown countless families into terror through raids conducted by agents in masks. That's in the United States of America. He has characterized all Venezuelans as criminal dirtbags and alien enemies. Those are words that he and his Secretary of Homeland Security have used. And he has killed at least 57 people, most of whom were Venezuelan, with airstrikes, bombs on boats, with no evidence, due process, or congressional authorization. I've said it consistently. Extrajudicial murder of Venezuelans is what Maduro does. It's not what America should do. El asesinato extrajudicial es lo que hace Maduro, no lo que debería hacer Estados Unidos. I have fought against these unjust actions every step of the way. I have taken the fight to restore TPS to the Supreme Court and brought congressional Democrats along with me. And I've worked across the aisle to introduce legislation that would renew protections for Venezuelans and provide a path to permanent residency. He liderado la lucha contra los políticos anti-inmigrantes de Trump en cada paso del camino. I've also put a spotlight on the lie that Trump has Venezuela's best interests at heart. While he talks tough about Maduro and takes potshots at catamarans, he lifts oil sanctions to allow revenue to flow to the regime. In exchange, he gets Maduro's help deporting hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans back to the dictatorship. That cash flow props up a brutal security apparatus that jails dissidents, censors the press, and crushes civil society. In the meantime, Venezuelans' human rights defenders are suffering due to Trump's cuts to democracy assistance. That is why I filed the Revocar Act, to stop these special favors and close the loopholes that keep Maduro's regime afloat. This corrupt bargain must end. I believe in maximum pressure on Maduro. Make no mistake. I believe in backing Maria Corina Machado and the Democratic opposition. But anyone who believes that Trump will promote democracy in Venezuela should look at what he's done to democracy here. Quien crea que Trump promoverá la democracia en Venezuela debería mirar lo que le ha hecho a la democracia aquí. Venezuelan Americans and all Americans should take a hard look at Trump's record before trusting him with something as dangerous and unpredictable as armed conflict. At the end of the day, he is doing what he always does, punishing the vulnerable to help out his wealthy, powerful friends. La estrategia de Trump ante cada problema es la misma. Castiga a los vulnerables para ayudar a sus amigos ricos. I want to allow my good friends to continue this discussion, so I will call upon my friend Addie Ferro.
Thank you so much. I am Adelis Ferro, co-founder and executive director of the Venezuelan American Caucus, but I am here today as a Venezuelan citizen, more than anything, as an American Venezuelan citizen. All I wanted to say today is, as someone that left Venezuela almost 2 decades ago, and as someone that still have her mom back in Caracas, Venezuela, in the middle of this cruel and criminal dictatorship of Nicolas Maduro, and having experienced everything that we have experienced back in Venezuela for more than 20 years now, because the Chavismo has been in power for 27 years, but let's say everything out of the democracy, the democratic process has been going on for more than 20 years. Having said that, the traits that we see right now in the government in the United States by President Trump, team of advisors, White House people, Homeland Security, don't get me even start with ICE, etc., are authoritarian traits. What he is doing, in many ways, sadly, is very similar to of what we know, what we have experienced back in Venezuela. And that deja vu and that similarity doesn't have to do anything with a political way of thinking or conservative of liberals. People is authoritarianism, is dictatorship, is someone that doesn't believe the rule of law applies to him. And don't get me wrong, I want Maduro out of power as anyone else. I cannot even explain how much I want democracy back in Venezuela, because among other things, I will be able to see my mom again. But I cannot conciliate that desperation and that desire for freedom back in Venezuela with doing it against the laws, against the Constitution, against the U.S. Congress here in the United States. All are we asking for is clarity, is legality, is do the right thing, follow the rule of law. We need to know what is going on. Even if we cannot know because we are regular people, they need to know this in Congress to do it the right way. Because what I believe is if we don't do whatever we're going to do in Venezuela the right way, the consequences could be even worse than what we already have. And that terrifies me. What is happening terrifies me as a Venezuelan. And as an American, terrifies me even more, because I cannot believe I am experiencing something that I already experienced back in Venezuela all over again in the United States. So I am just asking one more time for rationality back in the United States, bipartisanship back in the United States, the rule of law being respected back in the United States. And I want the United States to lead the freedom and democracy for Venezuela, but in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I can say it in Spanish really quick. Yo estoy aquí hoy porque además de toda la lucha que hemos hecho por, and I didn't say that in English, I'm going to say it really quick. In the middle of all of this, there are at least 600,000 Venezuelans that are being threatened to be sent back to Venezuela under this regime that apparently is about to be attacked by the U.S. military. These Venezuelans that were here lawfully, that had documents, are now in danger of being sent back. And actually, that's what they want to do, to send them all back to Venezuela in the middle of all of this ordeal. So how can you reconcile these realities? Okay, now in Spanish. Yo estoy aquí hoy como ciudadana estadounidense y como ciudadana venezolana. Las cosas que yo estoy viendo que están pasando aquí en los Estados Unidos cada vez se me parecen más a lo que vivimos en Venezuela. Cada vez las decisiones que toma el presidente Trump se parecen mucho más a las que en su momento tomó Hugo Chávez y a las que ha tomado Nicolás Maduro. En Venezuela tenemos más de 20 años de chavismo y más de 20 años de autoritarismo. Y lo digo con mucha propiedad porque yo peleé en Venezuela, yo marché, yo grité, yo tragué gas lacrimógeno, yo ayudé a los movimientos estudiantiles junto con un grupo muy grande de personas anónimas desde que estábamos en Houston desde el 2013. Yo viajé a Venezuela cuando estaban los campamentos y ayudamos a dotar a los campamentos y ayudamos a una gran cantidad de líderes estudiantiles, ayudamos a fundar primeros auxilios UCB, 14 organizaciones de primeros auxilios en todo el país. Lo que pasa es que yo no era una persona pública y ahora lo soy. Y ahora tengo una voz y por eso la estoy utilizando. Lo que estamos haciendo en los Estados Unidos con respecto a Venezuela no es correcto. Yo quiero, como todos, como el que más, que Maduro salga del poder y que paguen por sus crímenes. Pero ¿cómo podemos querer eso y cómo podemos apoyar que eso se haga mientras se está violando la ley en este que también es nuestro otro país? En este país donde también vivimos. Si se va a hacer lo que se vaya a hacer, tiene que ser bajo el imperio de la ley, haciéndolo de la manera correcta, de la manera legal, porque lo que sí estoy casi segura es que lo que sea que se haga, si no es de la manera correcta, puede traer consecuencias incluso peores de las que ya estamos viviendo en Venezuela. Y ese es mi mayor terror, porque yo soy venezolana, porque mi madre sigue en Venezuela. Y porque la madre de muchos de nosotros siguen allá y nuestra gente querida está allá. ¿Y cómo sabemos que de verdad todos estos ataques, todas estas amenazas, que además tienen un gran factor de propaganda, no van a terminar haciéndole daño a los inocentes en Venezuela? ¿Cómo podemos saber si no hay ningún apoyo del Congreso, si no hay un esfuerzo bipartidista, si es una decisión unitaria de un hombre que es el presidente Donald Trump y de su grupo más cercano? ¿Cómo podemos saber si de verdad esto en serio va a beneficiar a los venezolanos o a Venezuela o a la libertad de Venezuela? Entonces, yo lo que estoy aquí es para decirles que por estar en contra de la forma como se está haciendo, no tiene nada que ver con estar a favor de la libertad de Venezuela. Nosotros queremos que Maduro salga. La congresista Debbie Wasserman Schultz ha sido una campeona de la causa venezolana poniendo sanciones. Sanciones que, por cierto, en este momento siguen levantadas porque el presidente Trump, que no publicó nunca más las licencias de la OFAC para que nadie viera cuál era la negociación, sigue permitiendo y sigue comprando petróleo venezolano a través de Chevron. Y el presidente Donald Trump cambió esos barcos llenos de petróleo que siguen llegando todas las semanas, incluyendo esta a Estados Unidos, mientras todo esto pasa, por las vidas venezolanas que están siendo deportadas en miles y miles de vuelta a Venezuela. ¿Cuál es la verdad? Lo que queremos es que se hagan las cosas bien. Eso es todo lo que quería decir.
Thank you, Addie. Next is Luis Atencio, also a co-founder of the Venezuelan Office.
I'm going to start in Spanish, si no les importa. Venezuela necesita una transición que sea democrática, pacífica y justa. Ese camino empezó el 28 de julio de 2024, cuando elegimos a Edmundo González como nuestro presidente electo. Ante todo, eso tiene que ser mantenido y respetado. También es un momento oportuno para dar las gracias a los Estados Unidos, quien a través de los años nos ha apoyado justamente en este movimiento de la libertad para Venezuela, con personas como la representante Debbie Wasserman Schultz, quien siempre ha estado en nuestro lado. A su vez, también tenemos que exigir y tenemos la responsabilidad de decir que este apoyo tiene que seguir estando enmarcado dentro del marco del Estado de Derecho, de las leyes de nuestros países y ante todo el seguimiento de los principios de los derechos humanos. Si estos principios no se siguen, va a ser muy difícil que la libertad de Venezuela pueda ser verdad. Porque al final del día, la libertad de Venezuela, y lo que pedimos todos aquí de una manera u otra, es que podamos volver a tener un país con instituciones verdaderas, con instituciones que puedan confiar los venezolanos, y un país donde pueda haber derechos que se sigan y que se respeten. Y por eso nosotros sentimos que hoy por hoy el camino para Venezuela es la democracia, la base es la justicia y el destino es la reconciliación para todos. Now I'm going to kind of summarize that in English as well. Venezuela is in dire need of a political transition. This political transition has to be democratic, peaceful, but also centered on justice. This pathway was opened up last year when Venezuelans elected Edmundo Gonzalez as our president-elect. Above all else, this has to be respected and maintained. It would be opportune to thank the United States and representatives such as Debbie Wasserman Schultz for always having our back and standing with us when we need it the most. But at the same time, it is extremely important that this support from the United States keeps on being centered and highlighted under the rule of law, under the respect for laws in the United States and in Venezuela, while also being centered on human rights. Because if these principles aren't followed, we know that true liberty for Venezuela cannot be attained. That is why we feel that the pathway for Venezuela is the democracy centered on justice, and the final destination will be reconciliation amongst all Venezuelans for a better Venezuela.
Thank you so much, Luis. And before we take questions, the bottom line here is that Donald Trump he lifted sanctions on Venezuela. He is allowing oil sales, Maduro to profit from oil sales as a result. That is enriching Maduro and his regime and keeping him in power. Any other action that is going on off to the side, the extrajudicial killings, blowing up of boats, no evidence of, what the supposed purposes of those extrajudicial killings, no evidence of drug trafficking, perhaps that is occurring. But not only are we not making sure that once those boats are blown up, that we can find the pipeline to the top of the food chain and ensure that we can arrest who is engaging in that illegal activity, but it is a distraction. Because the reason that Maduro is able to be helped to remain in power is because Donald Trump has allowed him to profit from oil sales. He's in bed with his oil baron buddies who are making money as well. And he's revoked temporary protective status, threatening and ensuring and beginning to deport 600,000 Venezuelans who could not possibly be expected to be safe in a country that Donald Trump says is being led by a murderous dictator. I'm happy to take questions.
What do you think the end game is of the massive naval task force that's sitting off the coast down there? You don't need an aircraft carrier to counter drug trade. So the Gerald Ford is there, you have a number of other ships, 10,000 troops and whatnot. Do you have any idea at all as to what the game is?
What my friends shared with me, and there were others that were there as well, was that they don't trust, that they don't think Donald Trump can be trusted to follow through on anything. And the point that both Luis and Addie made was that any transition to democracy and the departure of Maduro from power needs to happen with consensus from the leadership of the Latin American nations in that region. Regime change, we don't have a very good track record from the United States, previous participation in regime change, either where we tried it and it was unsuccessful, or when it was successful, it resulted in more brutality and really horrific track record on the part of the United States when it came to our involvement in that. So there's a way to get to Maduro's departure from power. What it does not include is helping him remain in power by enriching him, by allowing him to profit from oil sales. If you have any other, anything to add.
She has one question in
Okay,
Spanish.
sure.
Hubo en la conversación que tuvieron con la congresista hablando sobre el tema del TPS. Sé que ella acaba de comentar algo, pero pudiera alguna
Sí,
cosa
ya. Sí, como sabemos, la congresista Debbie Wasserman Schultz, junto con otros miembros del Congreso, introdujeron hace ya un par de meses, o un poquito más, la ley de nuevo del TPS para los venezolanos, que ya se había tratado de introducir en el 2019, que por cierto, el secretario Marco Rubio era co-sponsor de esa ley, que le da TPS a los venezolanos hasta por 4 años y se renueva. Obviamente estamos en un Congreso de mayoría republicana y sabemos cuál es la actitud anti-inmigrante totalmente en general del Partido Republicano MAGA. Claro que hablamos de eso, estamos en manos lamentablemente de las Cortes, los abogados están buscando todavía recursos que se puedan utilizar, estamos en eso y realmente en este momento estamos en emergencia, tratando de ayudar, tratando de inventar eventos, de crear cosas junto con los congresistas, cómo informar a la comunidad de cuáles son los otros recursos que pueden utilizar mientras vemos cómo hacemos nosotros de este lado, mientras seguimos en el lado legislativo trabajando, presionando para un posible nuevo Congreso en el 2026 que se comprometa a pasar una reforma migratoria que nos incluya. Pero la verdad es que en este momento la Corte Suprema de Justicia nos ató mucho las manos en cuanto a lo que podemos hacer. Y solo del lado legislativo podría funcionar, pero aunque sabemos que tenemos la inmensa mayoría de la bancada demócrata, no contamos con la bancada republicana.
Any other questions?
From the TPS standpoint, from a legal standpoint, where does all that stand right now? I mean, I know there have been appeals and,
Yeah.
Yeah, I led 165 of my colleagues to, actually over 200 of my colleagues, in an amicus brief to the Supreme Court urging them to reject Donald Trump's withdrawal of TPS from Venezuelans, and they allowed the withdrawal to go through. So there is no more protection for Venezuelans who hold TPS no matter when they got it, because Donald Trump took it away from them, because he hypocritically has determined that it's more important to take care of his friends in the oil industry and prop up Maduro, allow the sanctions to be lifted for Maduro to profit from those oil sales in exchange for being able to deport 600,000 Venezuelan holders of TPS to a country that is dangerous enough for him to be declaring a Venezuelan gang as a terrorist organization, engaging in extrajudicial killings in both oceans in our hemisphere, blowing up boats with no evidence of what is happening, and moving an aircraft carrier, near the Venezuelan coastline. Donald Trump thinks Venezuelans here in this country, even though they came lawfully, are people who have small businesses, are contributing to our economy and to our society, have wanted nothing else other than having a better way of life for themselves and their families, and fleeing and fearing persecution that he is now going to send them back to. He is a hypocrite. Venezuelans here in this country cannot believe a word he says. The bottom line is he is letting Maduro make money and stay in power and be enriched by his oil sales, which Donald Trump could stop today by putting those sanctions back on. And what he gets in exchange is being able to send back Venezuelans who were here lawfully, who came the right way, because he's decided that they're criminal dirtbags and painted them all with the same brush. Tens of thousands of Venezuelans have already been deported, and hundreds of thousands more face that very same fate. That's not evidence of someone who cares about making sure that democracy and freedom is restored in that country.
what's happening to people who land there, who've been
Oh,
Yeah,
Um,
my friends can share that information.
what is happening to them? Separation of families. By the way, Venezuelan American Caucus is the organization that has been coordinated the lawsuit with lawyers and the National TPS Alliance. Separation of families, parents being ripped apart from their kids, people that were paying healthcare insurances, getting their healthcare insurance eliminated.
He's asking what happens to them once they go back to Venezuela.
Oh, once they go back to Venezuela, we don't know. That's the main problem, and we were just talking about that. Because many of them, we don't even know where they are. They are disappearing people. There are people that is getting, without any criminal record, being imprisoned immediately as they put a foot back in Venezuela. Just because they were showing something in social media or for whatever reason. They don't need a reason to disappear you back in Venezuela. Maduro, he doesn't need a reason. So what is happening right now is that, as Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz just said, they are trying to deport 600,000 Venezuelans back to Venezuela, while they're saying that they are about to attack Venezuelan military, while they are still giving Maduro money from Venezuelan oil. Where is that money going? That's the reason they're getting galvanized with their leadership. The money is not helping to discuss at all. And everything that is happening has a collateral damage of 600,000 Venezuelans in the United States. And that's a fact. The oil shipments from Venezuela to the United States, that's also a fact. The deportation flights that are happening 2 or 3 times per week, including this week, it's a fact. What is happening with the boats in the middle of the sea, it's a fact. All of this has been done by Donald Trump. So those are facts. Everything else so far is propaganda and nonsense. They don't want to talk to Congress. They don't want to do it the right thing. They are not even taking in consideration the rule of law. Not even I cannot even start talking about the due process for immigrants. But this is where we are, and the facts that we have as facts right now are not supporting what they're saying.
All I know is I have thousands of families in my district, and we have tens of thousands, if not more, in our community who are being torn apart. There are TPS holders from Venezuela who have had that revoked by Donald Trump all across our community. And they are facing deportation, fear, persecution, danger. And the deportation flights have commenced, using ICE to round people up, just to disappear them, and never heard from again. People who joined me at the round table told me stories of sexual brutality in Venezuela, arrests, imprisonment, torture. This is a brutal regime that Donald Trump is willing to send people back to. Remember, he also sent Venezuelans to a heinous prison in El Salvador, including someone who had TPS.
Correct.
Prior,
3 people.
Prior to it being revoked, and an American citizen.
What was the inflection point that essentially caused the shift to erase TPS?
Donald Trump's election. Donald Trump's election. You heard Kristi Noem refer to Venezuelans here in this country as criminal dirtbags. That they don't believe that people who are not from this country deserve to be protected here in the United States. I mean, that's the bottom line. And they're willing to enrich Maduro and make it likely that he stays in power, more likely that he stays in power, because of the oil profits that he benefits from in exchange for Trump being able to deport more Venezuelans.
Remember that Kristi Noem, on her Senate hearing, confirmation hearing, she actually said, before becoming the Secretary of Homeland Security, she actually said that one of the first things she was going to do was to eliminate TPS for those 600,000 criminals. Their words, her words, not mine.
And she did it.
Have you met with the Venezuelan community at all? Like, we knew where Trump's stance was when he was running for president, and a lot of Venezuelans in the community supported him, rallied with him. Have you met with any of them and to try to see where they stand now and how they feel about what's going on?
Well, we reach out to the whole Venezuelan community and through the social media and through many meetings, many events, many press conferences that we have been doing since February 2025. And the truth is that yes, there were a lot of hope from the Venezuelan community, which in their majority voted for Donald Trump, and that's not a secret. But right now, I will say there is, at the beginning was a disbelief, but right now there is a lot of disappointment, frustration. There are many people that realize that they voted for someone that would love to be Maduro, would love to have Maduro's power here in the United States. And because this is the thing, 600,000 Venezuelans with TPS means that from each 10 Venezuelans in the United States, at least 6 has TPS. The other 4 is either family members of those TPS beneficiaries, friends, co-workers, neighbors. So we are all suffering this. And yes, there are a lot of reaction, but there are a lot of fear too, to express publicly that they are not supporting Trump anymore, because those are the times we are living in the United States right now.
But what was their hope? Like, what was their hope?
Freedom in Venezuela. Freedom in Venezuela, basically. They believe that that strong man was going to somehow do something to get democracy back in Venezuela without damaging the good people that live here in the United States. That's what they believed. But sadly, there is no good people for him. There are no good Venezuelans for the Trump administration. They have labeled all of us as criminals. They have labeled all of us since the presidential campaign as Tren de Aragua. And that's the truth.
Yes, and if I may add, I think the original hope is that for many people was that it would not include them. At the end of the day, that is what's happening, because part of the campaign trail promises from this administration was that they would only include the criminals. And that's what it was for the first couple of weeks. But after that, as I and Congressperson Debbie Wasserman Schultz have said, that is not the case anymore. We've seen basically anybody's up for grabs, right? So that's why you see when we talk about us talking to the community, it's even difficult to talk to the community because a lot of people are scared. I have friends who stay at home. They go from home to work and back because they have fear of being on the wrong corner at the wrong time. And that's what the Venezuelan community and the broader TPS community, that's not just the Venezuelan TPS community, you also have Haitian TPS, other countries that have TPS as well, and Secretary Noem has 17 different countries. It's not just the Venezuelans. I am Venezuelan, but I think it's also it's important to talk about the broader group.
¿Puedes decirlo en español, perdón?
All right. Creo que la esperanza inicial era que las redadas que iba a hacer esta administración no iba a incluir solamente los criminales. Eso vemos que eso no está pasando hoy en día. Hoy en día se está incluyendo a cualquier persona, a todos los venezolanos y cualquier persona que tenga TPS. Cuando hablamos de TPS, sí hay 600,000 personas beneficiadas en Estados Unidos, pero también hay TPS para 17 otros países. La secretaria Kristi Noem ha dicho que quiere eliminar los TPS para todos estos países. Es decir, para hacer eso, tienen que decir que las condiciones han mejorado en esos 17 países. Algo que sabemos, por lo menos para Venezuela y para Haití, que no es así. Entonces, cuando nosotros intentamos reunirnos con nuestros compatriotas, es difícil porque hay mucho miedo. Tengo amistades que van de la puerta de su casa a la puerta del trabajo y de vuelta, porque tienen miedo de estar en la esquina equivocada en el momento equivocado. Y desafortunadamente eso es lo que estamos viviendo ahorita.
I'm going to continue to stand up for freedom in Venezuela, to stand up for my Venezuelan constituents. I represent the district that has the largest number of Venezuelans of any in the country. My hometown is West Venezuela, and I raise my kids in a community where we are all in and out of each other's houses all day long, and we're all family in our community. And it's wrong what this administration is doing. It's wrong for Donald Trump to send Venezuelans here who have not only helped make America better, as immigrants always have, but it's wrong to send them back to uncertainty, brutality, and torture, and allow Trump to enrich Maduro so he can continue to cling to power. And I will continue to fight that every single day.
Is this still a threat for people that live in a big green card?
Oh, there's 600,000 people who have TPS that are going to be deported. Their TPS has ended. The Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump can revoke TPS, and he has. And so yes, as Addie said, there are flights at least 2 or 3 times a week that are taking Venezuelans here back to the brutality of this regime, disappearing them and never to be heard from again. It's unacceptable, it's outrageous, and I will continue to stand up and fight every single day on behalf of my constituents and the Venezuelan community so that they can know that there is someone fighting for them here in the United States of America, a country that they sought refuge in, that they deserve to remain in. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Just have one other, as we leave here today, what would be your top priority to, get political leverage, moral suasion to reestablish TPS so that people can stay? Or is there some other objective that's within practical reach?
I mean, what needs to happen is that Donald Trump needs to put the sanctions back on Venezuela and starve the regime, not enrich Maduro. Not make it more not take actions like he has to make it more likely that he stays in power while pretending that blowing up some boats and gaining no evidence because you can't investigate anyone who's dead, engaging in extrajudicial killings and moving an aircraft carrier near the coast of Venezuela to pretend that he's actually going to do something to transition Venezuela to democracy. That our track record in the United States is abhorrent when it comes to regime change, particularly in Latin America. And he's alienating Latin American leaders with whom are opposed to Maduro, but who are starting to sympathize more with him because of Trump's illegal actions. We have to make sure that we build consensus and that we starve Maduro out of power through really significant sanctions and pressure through regional unity, pressure the military in Venezuela to help make sure that he leaves power and that the rightful president of Venezuela, Edmundo Gonzalez, and Maria Corina Machado and her party are able to make a peaceful democratic transition to freedom in Venezuela.
Amen.
That's what
Amen.
needs
Thank
to
you
happen.
so much.